Datpiff.com world premiere.
They don't put an actress on the floor. They don't never front line of war. They ain't never had a line of tour. They ain't got a line around the store. You ain't dead. You ain't dead. I never see your name up in the floor. You ain't got a line around the store. Never put an actress on the floor. You ain't never front line of war. You ain't dead. None of this. You ain't dead. None of this. Yeah. You ain't see what I seen. Put a bitch on my, put a bitch on the bed. Put a 10 in the scene. It's a lot on my plate. I can make no mistake. Shoulder hold a lot of weight. Please jumping out the face. He ain't gon' feel like I feel. Niggas ain't real like I'm real. So I ain't feel like I feel. They with me too. Try to be funny, you ain't finna kill like I will. You don't even wanna live like I live. You ain't gotta get like I live. I'm a driver, I shoot on a mission. I was raised by the realest niggas. All they told us is kill all these niggas. We never gonna lose if we ain't in this business. Took a turn on the road to the riches. Had my heart on the curb in the trenches. Everything that I want is expensive. But it came with a lot of conditions. I poisoned and got in your system. Boy, you done shot through the ceiling. At first it's the awkwardest feeling. But fuck with my nigga, let's get it. When donuts is something ridiculous. Fuck up traffic with all of my crips. I gotta be over specific. Just so they notice the difference. You don't put an actress on the floor. You don't never front line of war. You ain't never had a line of tour. You ain't got a line around the store. You ain't dead. You ain't dead. I never see your name up in the floor. You ain't got a line around the store. Never put an actress on the floor. You ain't never front line of war. You ain't dead. None of this. You ain't dead. None of this. Yeah. This shit is not fictional. It's really my life in reverse is medicinal. This shit that got critical. Pain is forever, the payback residual. You ain't got war, ain't hard, you gon' problem about shit that you know you won't feel it. Ain't got no pressure, problem by the beat. Been my little brother, caught him by the lead. Been took a lot of risk. For the money I could get. She took all hard phones, wishing I ain't in vain. I was out told her I was trying to get it, and that's when that demon came. Bitch, you won't get in the way. I put my focus on the hidden music, my niggas start feeling away. Even if niggas really make it through, probably don't feel it away. I got double lights and 5 giant pieces, and I send them away. We do this shit every day. Hustle got rich in the paint, but hustle got chips in the bank. Hustle ambitious and great, hustle proficient and late. Hustle officially straight, hustle unlimited faith. Hustle relate, if you gon' touch you a safe. Staying down through the hard times. Front line when it was your time. Self-made, pushing hard lines, trying to tell you niggas that it's our time. Actors on the floor, nah. You don't never front line of war. No. You ain't never had a line of tour. You ain't got a line around the store. You ain't dead. None of that shit. You ain't dead. Yo, I never see your name up in the floor. You ain't got a line around the store. No. Never put an actress on the floor. You ain't never front line of war. You ain't dead. None of this. You ain't dead. None of this. Yeah.
Datpiff.com, the mixtape authority.
What's good, what's good, what's good? It's your man, Ken Billy on the check-in. Happy Saturday, everybody. Hopefully you are well wherever you at. You doing it big. You with your loved ones. You smoking good. You relaxing. But hopefully the number one thing is you staying healthy and you staying sucker free. All right. So today is Fortune Favors the Bold. I was going to talk about a few different people, but I want to talk about someone that is very, very, very important to me. I admire them, and I think that this extraordinary life that I'm talking about, if we look into her life, we could take a lot of things from it, and we could use it as ammunition. We could use it as fuel. We can win with the way this woman lived her life. She had a full life, a very full life. So it's going to be hard for me to shorten her life. I don't want to do her a disservice, but maybe you guys, after I'm done, you could go watch some documentaries on her, and you can check out her Wikipedia, her biographies. This was an extraordinary woman, and I admire this woman. So the subject matter today is Fortune Favors the Bold. And being bold is having confidence, Being bold is risk-taking. Being bold is doing things unconventional. But being bold is having maximum belief in yourself. When your back is against the wall, no matter what's going on, you're able to stay centered and you're able to make moves. And this world, it's governed by those that make bold moves, the movers and shakers. I mean, you know the regular names. We've been talking about the same people for 20, 30 years, and they all have the same characteristics. They make bold moves. Oftentimes the moves they make, other people don't understand. They're criticized for those moves. They're laughed at, scoffed at for those moves, but time tells all truth. So after an extended period of time goes on, we see that, wow, that it actually was a great one. So this person I'm talking about is a great one, and she gets lost in history. And there's some things about her that if we figure out what works for us, we can take her life and use it in our lives, okay? Now, let's be clear. There is no Beyonce without Josephine Baker. There is no Rihanna without Josephine Baker. There is no Tina Turner without Josephine Baker. Hell, there's probably no modern feminist movement without Josephine Baker, because Josephine Baker really, really pushed the envelope, especially at that particular time. But before I go into Josephine Baker, I want to get in a few things, okay? So we're going to talk about 7 qualities or traits that bold people do. And if you want to find more about this, you can check out Kevin Baum. He's one of Fortune 500, top 500 entrepreneurs. So we're going to talk about the 7 things that really bold people do. And these things are actually around the board. These things are universal, okay? And when you look at a Magic Johnson or Warren Buffett or you name it, it doesn't even have to be in finance. It could be in athletics. It could be in education. It could be in farming. There are particular traits that these people display over and over again that gets them there, but not just gets them there, it keeps them there. And we're going to talk about those 7 things. So, like, again, thank you guys for being here. Hopefully all is well in your world. And if you're here, then you have a thirst and a want and a passion for being bold, okay? So let's get into it. All right, so you may want to take notes on this. You may want to grab a pen or a pencil and a pad, because these are things that you could use in your life, and that's what it's about, you know, about being bold. All right, so again, I love you guys, and let's get into these bars. All right, so again, this is the 7 things bold people do, and then we'll get into Miss Josephine. All right, so again, if you want to find out more about this, you could check out Kevin Baum. He goes into this in a great deal. Okay, so the first one is they own their flaws and their strengths. Now, this is the characteristics of a bold person. They own their flaws and they own their strengths, okay? There's a difference between boldness and carelessness. Bold leaders have strong self-awareness. They know when they should take bold action and when they are out of their element. They minimize the risk for themselves and others by constantly reassessing themselves and engaging others to accommodate for personal weakness. Want to be a bold leader? Be more self-aware. Engage others who can complement your strengths and compensate for your weaknesses. I think that's great advice. And a lot of the times when we look in our lives, what we're lacking is based on bold action. Somewhere in our life, we're not taking risks. Somewhere in our life, we're not being bold and assertive and aggressive. And a lot of times, most of the time, we don't own our flaws. And that's important because we live in an age of victimization. Everybody's a victim. Everybody wants to be oppressed. Everybody wants to tell their story of the time they fell and bumped and hurt their leg. Everybody wants to try to heal, you know, but bold people own their flaws. Okay, and they turn those flaws into strengths, and they convert those vices and transmute them into energy that they can use. Okay, so the first thing that bold people do is they own their flaws and their strengths. Now, before I move to the next one, think about some of your flaws and think about some of your strengths. How do you go about that? All right, what do you do? Do you have to go repent? Do you have to always talk about healing? Instead of that, why don't you look into that behavior and figure out what it is that you're doing that you dislike? How can you convert that into positive energy? How can you transmute that? All right. Instead of feeling bad about yourself, instead of always feeling like, you know, you're a fuck up and you know what, I need to heal. I keep saying that word because that's big right now. Everybody wants to heal, right? And fortune favors the bold, right? So heal in your progress, heal in your success, heal in moving forward. All right. Okay. So moving right along to number 2, they keep their priorities clear, or they keep clear priorities. Okay. Now this is the behavior of bold people. They keep clear priorities. Someone who constantly jumps into action without plan isn't bold. They're just foolish. Bold people know their objectives and prioritize them clearly. They can afford to be bold because they can recognize the right opportunity when it comes along. Want to be a bold leader? Know clearly what you need to accomplish and seek those chances that will move the team forward. Avoid unimportant activities that lead to distraction. Man, yo, that's like the story of all of our lives right now. Some people, you ask them what they got going on, and they start running off all these things, right? It sounds like they got a full plate. But when you audit what they have going on, it's really unimportant activities. Okay, that's another form of procrastination. When we stack our plate to make it seem like we got so much going on. Yo, check this out. There's nothing wrong with doing one thing every month. There's nothing wrong with that, especially if that one thing can lead to so many opportunities. There's nothing wrong with doing that same thing every day. Okay, we make a real big deal about stacking our plate. On Monday I'm doing this, on Tuesday I'm doing this, on Wednesday I'm doing this, but we're not really giving nothing 100% though. And so it takes forever to get things done. And if we just be a little more intimate with those things that we need to do and clear off the plate and minimize the distraction, minimize them, then get rid of them, I think we'll all be a little more productive. Not a little more, but a lot more productive. A lot of people haven't stuck to their New Year's resolution because they got a stacked plate of unimportant activities. But that's not being bold. It just said right here, you constantly jump into plan. If you constantly jump into something without a plan, that's not bold. It's foolish. And a lot of times we got people in our lives, yo, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And we jump over there and we're not nurturing our thing. We want to go save everybody. We want to go help everybody. That's a mistake. That's a character flaw that a lot of us have. I know I've done that in my life, where I got something I'm really supposed to sit with and I'm supposed to keep my focus on that thing, but someone calls me and I jump off my lane, my purpose, and I go help someone else. Now, that's fine to help other people. Who doesn't? You know, acts of service is great, but it's hard to do that and when your cup doesn't overflow, you know, and you got dreams and goals on your vision board that you haven't got to. And eventually you're going to have a lot of resentment. You know what I'm saying? So curve unimportant things, you know, and go into everything you do with a plan. Keep your priorities clear. No matter if you're talking to your mama, no matter if you someone is courting you, wanting to date you, your priorities come before the date. And we're going to get into that when we talk about Josephine Baker too, because she never put a relationship over her priorities. Now, that's very key because we live in a space where no one wants to be alone. You know, we're all on social media. We look at the lives of others and we want that life too. And we say relationship goals. And we're willing to compromise priorities for relationship goals. Okay, that's not wise. The relationship that you hop in, no matter what type of relationship is, from intimate to friendships, those relationships should fit into the priorities. All right? So, number 3, they speak up. Now, these are characteristics of bold people, if you're just tuning in. They speak up. Bold people are not necessarily loud or boisterous, but when they have something to say, they say it. More important, they understand when and how to say it. Being bold does not equal being a bully or a loudmouth. Bold leaders must be better at tact and empathy because the very nature of their words will carry power and impact. Bold leaders also understand that silence is also the greatest statement one can make, and they can use it judiciously. Want to be a bold leader? Say what needs to be said before the silence derails the team. Yo, this is super big in our path to boldness because a lot of us don't know the temperature in the room. You know, we come, especially if you come from hip hop, you come from keep it real culture where you got to say how you feel all the time. And if you look in your life, when you do that, you know, oftentimes it doesn't just make you lose, it makes everyone lose. You have to know the temperature in the room. You have to know when to be silent. You have to know when to talk. You have to know when to leave. You have to know when to show up. You know, being bold isn't just being loud. Again, I'm going to read this one again because this one is important, especially when you're coming from a background where you don't practice that much self-control, where you feel like you can say anything at any time, but that becomes detrimental to the team. All right, so they speak up. This is the characteristics of bold people. They speak up. Bold people are not necessarily loud or boisterous, but when they have something to say, they say it. More important, they understand when and how to say it. Being bold does not equal being a bully or a loudmouth. Bold leaders must be better at tact and empathy because the very nature of their words will carry power and impact. Bold leaders also understand that silence is often the greatest statement one can make, and they use it judiciously. Want to be a bold leader? Say what needs to be said before the silence derails the team. And that could go both ways because sometimes you need to be silent. And, you know, it's important that we look at culture and take the good things from it. It's not that many, but take the good things from it and then travel the road least traveled. Because the way that culture is designed for you not to have self-control. And it encourages you to be uncouth. It encourages you to be unresponsible. It's not always about saying what you feel. There's a time and place for that. The truth is expensive, especially if you are the leader of people. But even if it's just you, you have to know the temperature in the room. That's very important. And oftentimes you have to realize this, your feelings or what you feel does not matter. It's always about checks and balances. Always. Never forget that. Okay? And never allow people to play you out of your position. Don't allow people to let you be the crash dummy because they know you're going to always keep it real. So instead of them saying something, they always get you to crash out because they know you're going to keep it real. They know you don't have no self-control and you always just going to have diarrhea at the mouth whenever something rubs you the wrong way. Okay, so very, very, very important. Okay, they speak up, but you also know when to shut up. Okay, moving right along. Number 4, they pair action with knowledge. They pair action with knowledge. And if you're just tuning in, these are the characteristics of bold people. Even though bold leaders are prone to action, they are rarely considered rash. They apply the same sense of action to learning and due diligence as they do to any other activity. Bold leaders want to make sure their actions lead to success. So they investigate before leading their team to the charge. Want to be a bold leader? Improve your odds of success by doing your homework. You'll increase your confidence and your success rate. That's big. I'm going to read that again. I'm going to go slow and because the devil's in the details. Bold leaders or bold people pair action with knowledge. That's paramount, because the way that social media is set up and the internet is set up, you don't have to study anymore. You can listen to one Abraham Hicks clip. You can listen to one Tony Robbins clip or one Les Brown clip. And all of a sudden now you are a dating coach, relationship coach, finance coach. You know about the metal netter. You know about esoteric information off one thing. Usually, if you put 10,000 hours into your field, you've already crafted a behavior that goes with that. The reason why the culture is out of line is because it's full of information, but there's no action to go towards the information because they didn't study. The scriptures say, study to show thyself approved. That means you got to read that over and over again. There's nothing wrong with reading a book, then doubling back and reading it differently through a different lens. Don't be in a rush to do something if you don't have a certain type of behavior that goes with it. Very, very, very important. Very, very key. Okay? I'm going to read that again. They pair action with knowledge. Even though bold leaders are prone to action, they are rarely considered rash. They apply the same sense of action to learning and due diligence as they do to any other activity. Bold leaders want to make sure their actions lead to success. Very important right there. Bold leaders want to make sure their actions lead to success. I'm going to use myself as an example, because anything I do, I like to throw myself under the bus first to let people know that, you know what, I ain't always been the person that I am. I used to have behaviors that didn't lead to success, and I never audited myself. So that behavior plus times a week, times a month, times a year, I can't be surprised about the return on investment that I had, right? That's important. You want your actions to lead to success. So audit yourself and keep it 1,000. Yesterday, did what you do, will that lead to success? The day before, what you did, will it lead to success? Today, how you started your morning. Can you start every single morning like that, and will it lead to success? Be honest with yourself. Okay? You're the only person that can judge you. And if you don't like the direction that you're going, it's okay to pivot. Totally. Okay? It's okay to pivot. Again, audit yourself. Or what you're doing, is it going to lead to success? Not my form of success or society's form of success. What you consider successful. If you consider if the things that you're doing every single day will lead to what you consider successful, then have at it. Stay on the path. But if it's not going to lead to where you think is successful or what success is, and it doesn't align with your vision board, then strong pivot right now. Okay. Board leaders want to make sure their actions lead to success. So they investigate before leading their team to the charge. Very important. They investigate before leading their team to the charge. One of the things I hate the most is when someone has me in bullshit. When someone has me in their timeline, or when they have me in their space and they're not ready for me. They're not prepared. Okay? So I came with hella energy and enthusiasm, and they didn't do their homework about what they got me in. I'm too old to scramble. I already did that. Hell, I'm too old to hustle. It's about doing business, because hustle, there's a thin line between hustling and scrambling. They bleed into each other, and it's just running in the dark, just bumping your head. I already did that. So if someone has me in their space, I'm expecting them to do their homework about what we're in, not winging it. Okay? You increase your confidence and your success rate. That's super important. And that was bold leaders pair their action with knowledge. So, go back to some of your lectures. Go back to your Bible. Go back to your Quran. Whatever your information base is, go back there. Don't just think you got it. Because this is something, when it comes to being successful, when it comes to being bold, and when it comes to having things, we got to do something. We have to do those things that will lead us to success every single day. Yeah, it's a little boring. Yeah, it's a little rigid. But this is what it takes to get this W. Now remember, you're older longer than you are younger. You spend a little bit of time in your youth. 1 to 40, that's your youth. You spend most of your time on the back end. So we have to make the right decisions now so we can chill later. Check? All right? So hopefully you guys are taking notes, and hopefully this is some good information that you can use. For those looking to increase their success rate, for those looking to increase everything they have in their life, and about more life. So there's a way to get there. All right. Number 5. We are on number 5, moving right along, and then we are going to get into a person that I think is very bold, someone that I really look up to. Okay. And that's Josephine Baker. So we'll get through these 7 characteristics. I wanted to give you a map that you can use, and then we'll talk about Josephine a little bit. Number 5, they accept the value of failure. This is important. Check this out. No one is totally comfortable with failure, but bold leaders understand that greater rewards stem from greater risk. Still, they know how to mitigate catastrophic risk and how to protect their team. Bold leaders also know how to use risk to their advantage. They harness the energy and adrenaline and make sure that every failure is a learning opportunity. Want to be a bold leader? Make failure an acceptable part of your process. Teach the team how to assess and limit risks so missteps can happen without total destruction. Then get people to learn and reboot. That's super important, because when we fail oftentimes and things don't go our way, we think that life is just picking on us. We take on the victim mentality instead of just stepping back from the issue, looking at it, and pivoting. Okay. The 5th characteristic that very bold people do is they accept the value of failure. The value of failure. We know the cost of failure, but we don't know the value of failure. Now, there's 2 ways you can fail. You can fail backwards, or you can fail forwards. Let me tell you the difference between failing backwards and failing forward. Failing backwards is continually to do the things that got you in the messed up situation that you're in now, over and over and over and over again. You have no new mistakes, and there's no new season in your life. Now, whatever deity that you believe in, whatever you call it, he, she, Buddha, Yahweh, Jesus, whatever, Allah, it shows itself through people. So if you have the same people coming into your life, the same exact people, and those people aid to you failing backwards, then you know that you're not moving forward. Now, failing forward is going outside, passing out your flyer to your business, and no one's calling your phone. You're in the rain, sleet, hail, snow, trying to promote yourself, campaigning, and no one's biting. You put money into an investment and you took a loss, and you put more money in there and you took a loss, and you got to go to your friends and family for another loan, and you look dumb, but you have belief in yourself, and you keep working that plan, and then all of a sudden, boom, there it goes. It goes viral, and everyone knows your name, and everyone is patronizing your business. They don't know what it took for you to get there. They don't know that continuously over and over you were failing forward. Failing forward is new mistakes. Failing forward brings opportunity. Now, you might not get there running. You may get there walking or crawling. And if you can't hold on, you hang on. But failing backwards is way different than failing forward. So I wanted to emphasize that. Okay, number 5, they accept the value of failure. No one is totally comfortable with failure, but bold leaders understand that greater rewards stem from greater risk. Still, they know how to mitigate catastrophic risk and to protect their team. Bold leaders also know how to use risk to their advantage. They harness the energy and adrenaline and make sure that every failure is a learning opportunity. Want to be a bold leader? Make failure an acceptable part of your process. Teach the team how to assess and limit risk so missteps can happen without total destruction. Then get people to learn and reboot. Make sure you like and share this video. Okay? Make sure you like and share this video. We should have these likes up. Because if you are going the same direction as me, then you have a thirst to be bold and you're trying to unlock genius potential. And if that's the case, them thumbs should be coming up in the chat. All right? Number 7. 1 second. Let me get it ready for you. And if you can't, oh, I'm not number 6. I'm sorry. Number 6. And hopefully some people are writing this down. And, you know, you are putting this part of your vision board. Because I want you to be bold. You know, there's no reason why you don't have what you want. There's no reason why you're not where you want to be. And if you're not, then all we have to do is check the habits. That's it. We just check the habits, and if those habits are conducive to what it is that you want to do, then you just make a strong pivot. You will not be the first person ever that it ever existed to pivot. I promise you. All right? It's mandatory. Number 6, they make the most of small wins. Warren Buffett talks about being happy with small gains too. All right? They make the most of small wins. Many people sit and wait around for the right opportunity before they are willing to step up and take action. Sadly, sometimes the right opportunity never comes. Bold people understand that rarely is any situation perfect from the beginning. They look to make the most of any given set of circumstances that can lead to victory, even a small one. Constant little wins spell success, attracting followers. Want to be a bold leader? Start with a small battle you think you could win. Map out a plan and take the field. Winning builds confidence as well as your reputation. Man, that's powerful, because there's another form of procrastination which is holding so many talented people back, and that is perfectionism. Wanting things to be all the way right before you make a move. Let me tell you something. It's never the right time to do anything. You just do. Everything comes down to chance. You take a chance and it works or it doesn't. And if it's in the stars for you, that's how it's going to play out. But there's never a time to do anything. There's never a right time to do anything. Okay? And you may not be doing what you want to do because you might be disgruntled with small wins, but small wins add up, right? Especially if you play it out over a course of time. Small win in December, small win in January, small win in February. Now, there's a saying, slow dough better than no dough. Small wins is better than no wins, because guess what? If you have a small win in December, another small win in January, another small win in February, another small win in April, then you got a big win in March. That big win is grouped together with those small wins. And a lot of times people don't even get the small wins because they don't even start, because they have perfection in their mind. And that's a huge mistake. Check this out. No matter what time you get in the game, it's always going to be a form of trial and error. You're always going to have to go through the process. So start now. All right, let me read that again. And this is really, really for people that are perfectionists. Yo, you're stepping on your own toes when it comes to your creation and contributions. All right? Just put it out. Bold people make the most of small wins. Many people sit and wait around for the right opportunity before they are willing to set up and take action. Sadly, sometimes the right opportunity never comes. Bold people understand that rarely is any situation perfect from the beginning. They look to make the most of any given set of circumstances that can lead to a victory, even a small one. Constant little wins spell success, attracting followers. Want to be a bold leader? Start with a small battle you think could win. Map out a plan and take the field. Winning builds confidence as well as your reputation. The reason why I know that small wins lead to success, because guess what? A lot of times when we fall flat on our faces, it's small losses that did that. It's never one big thing that happens. It's these little things that consistently happen over and over in our lives. A missed payment here, mismanagement here, failed relationship here. It'd be small things that contribute to us catching big losses. So on the flip side of that, small wins can contribute to big wins, but you just got to move. And that's just the behavior of a bold person. All right. You guys with me? You guys with me? I hope this is landing in the right spots. And for those that need to hear this, I hope that it's you. All right. Those that are looking to be bold, and you know what, you just need some confirmation. So all I am for you is a mirror. That's all I am, is a mirror. All right, you already knew this stuff already. You just needed somebody to come and be like, boom, yeah, you on the right track. That's a lot of us. A lot of us, we already know the game. We already know the truth. We just need a mirror sometimes for somebody to be like, yo, you already know, you know what I'm saying? So I know I need that confirmation sometimes, no matter how confident I am. So number 7, and the last one, they build momentum. Bold people recognize that a single victory is not enough to sustain leadership. They work to create a series of actions that helps the team gather confidence, speed, and power. They have a sense of when to add energy to drive forward and when to let momentum itself carry things forward efficiently. Want to be a bold leader? Craft your plan so that each action takes advantage of the success from the last. Take advantage of any win that gains attention, respect, and popularity. Activate your fans. Cultivate relationships. Build buzz. Don't coast. That's some advice that I'll take for myself. There have been times when, yo, I'm on the verge of the next great thing in my life, and I didn't continue the momentum for whatever reason. And that's my fault, because I'm responsible for my life. I'm responsible for me catching the dub. So no matter what is going on, what I'm chasing and what I'm after has to supersede all the distractions in my life. Period. So the 7th thing bold people do is they build momentum. Okay? They build momentum. Now I wanted to give you a map of bold behavior that you personally can use. Okay? I wanted to give you a map of things that you can use, things you could go back to, things you could look forward to doing every single day. All right? Before I got into the person that I consider to be extremely bold. Now, I was going to do this about several people, but what I'm going to do is break these things up, because people need to be studied. And I'm going to go through her life very fast, just hit highlights, and you do the homework on her, because she lived an amazing life, okay? And it's hard to condense that and shrink her life into very half an hour. So that's small, okay? And I'm using her because the odds were stacked against her, okay? And she still became iconic, and she pushed through, all right? Now, I want to start in St. Louis, Missouri, where she was born. I want to start there because she seen the St. Louis riots that happened in 1917. The St. Louis riots was devastating. It wasn't on the scale of the riots that happened in Black Wall Street, but the St. Louis riots that happened in East St. Louis was devastating. It was very bad. I believe Josephine Baker was 11 years old when that happened. And between 40 to 250 black people died in the St. Louis riots, or some call it the St. Louis Massacre. So there's not really a right number about the deaths. There's an estimation, so it could be higher. But based on records, between 40 to 250 people, black, died. 6,000 blacks were left homeless. About $450,000 in property damage was assessed, and I believe now in today's currency, that's $8 million. That's a lot of money, okay, in property damage. And you see those riots a lot in the early 1900s because poor immigrant whites were coming to the country, and what they were seeing was thriving black people that had infrastructure. I'm mentioning that because there's a segment of black life that is not really talked about in America, and it's the industrious side of black people. And oftentimes that industrious side of black people was met with a lot of jealousy because poor whites from Germany and Scotland and Ireland and England, they were coming for the American dream. And because of class in America, a lot of them couldn't get the American dream. However, black Americans were living the life that they came to want to live. They came here to America to want to live the dream, but it was the black American that had all the labor jobs. It was the black Americans that had all the skills. So a lot of white Americans were locked out of economics. So this is why a lot of racial tension was occurring. It didn't necessarily have anything to do with people's skin tone. It had everything to do with, you know what, you got what I want. It became a racial thing through a lot of propaganda. All right, but I wanted to talk about that a little bit because this is the foundation that I believe made Josephine Baker move accordingly and move extremely boldly. So I wanted to start there because usually at the root of bold behavior is some type of traumatizing experience that happened to you. Michael Jordan. Now listen, the thing about trauma, it does not necessarily have to be graphic. It doesn't have to be anything horrific. You don't have to get molested. A traumatizing experience is just something that shocked you. It did something to your nervous system. And it made you change. It shifted your brain to a different space, okay? Michael Jordan was cut from the basketball team. Now you say, come on, man, someone being cut from a basketball team, that wired them like that? Sure, totally. If you've been told no before, if you didn't make the cheerleading team, you don't necessarily have to get raped. You don't necessarily have to live in poverty for something to be traumatizing to you. It's just something that shocks your nervous system to the point where it makes an impact and causes you to move differently. So I personally believe that Josephine Baker being not involved, but a child when the St. Louis massacre or riots occurred, I believe that shaped her mind differently. I believe that it shocked her to the point where it activated a certain part of her imagination because of the way that she lived her life according to that particular time for man and woman was very odd. She was born in 1906, but she had the imagination of a person that was born in a monarchy in England. You know, she had a sense of entitlement. Now, some people could say it's because of her skin tone. I don't know. Colorism could be at play. It could be anything. But I know she had a very dysfunctional relationship with her mother. I know the conditions that was going on in St. Louis at that time. Her skin tone didn't allow her to move forward, but maybe it did because she wound up in different spaces that the majority of women in the world would never be in. So I believe the riots are what triggered her mind. Now, again, this is a woman that lived a full life, and I'm going to narrate it the best as I can. And I believe those riots made her be a risk taker. But I also believe it made her be extremely narcissistic and selfish. But she had to be that way, to go where she was going. The thing about it is The word toxic and narcissism, those things are thrown around so much now that people are ashamed of it. But yo, to go where you need to go, it's going to take a level of narcissism. And oftentimes what people call toxic is just somebody that is sure of themselves. A lot of times what we call toxic behavior is someone that tells other people no. A lot of times what we consider toxic behavior is someone that is firm. People don't like another person's tone. They don't like that they're sure about themselves, and they will not allow themselves to be abused. So you talk a certain type of way. And in today's climate, they consider that to be toxic behavior. Okay? But that's what it's going to take to go to the next level. I'm not talking about stepping on no one else's toes, but I'm talking about being so assured in yourself and confident in your own abilities that you will not allow the interests of someone else to supersede yours. So Josephine Baker was extremely narcissistic, but she had to be. Her narcissism was necessary. Okay? By the age 15, Josephine Baker was married twice. She was married at 13, then she got married at 15. Yo, the times were different. This is where she gets her last name, Baker. If I believe it was Willie Baker. Now, of course, the guys that she married were older than her. Now, let me say this about Josephine Baker that makes her interesting. Because she did not put men over her purpose. Getting married wasn't Josephine Baker's ceiling. This is what makes her bold for a person at this particular time. While the rest of American women or women living in the West, while the rest of women groom their daughters and groom themselves to be married and have a child, Josephine Baker wasn't that woman. In fact, throughout her life, it's reported that Josephine Baker was proposed to 1,500 times. Josephine Baker was married 4 times and was openly promiscuous in all of her marriages. And she didn't hide that. Josephine Baker was what you considered a Lilith or a sacred whore. And it's through that energy that she was using, it helped her navigate to where she was going. Josephine Baker was very opportunistic, and she used her sexuality to navigate and get the places that she was going. This wasn't a girl with a trust fund. This wasn't a girl with an inheritance. Can we judge? It's about playing your cards. So sometimes you use a little bit of manipulation. Sometimes you use a little finesse. Sometimes you lie a little bit. I'm not judging how people get to where they gotta go, because guess what? If I don't got nothing for you, what can I say about your movements? It's not for me to agree. But Josephine Baker was very different than the women of her time, even some women now. Josephine Baker was a woman that used men as a stepping stone to get where she wanted to go. Oftentimes, she would be making love to her lover while her mate would walk through the door. And she was so arrogant, and she was so in control and in charge. The mate that would see her cheating on him, he was so in fear of her leaving that he would just turn around and shut the door. He was willing to suffer in silence because that's how powerful she was. So again, she was very different. She was definitely an envelope pusher in terms of the narrative of women needing to be married. You know, she did get married 4 times. I believe she miscarried a baby too. But I personally believe that she miscarried on purpose. I don't think Josephine Baker wanted any biological children because that would slow her down. This was a woman that was on a mission, and she seen herself somewhere. She seen herself going different places. This is what made her bold, because she had a different type of confidence and a different type of arrogance, even for a mulatto at that particular time. Now you see she's very fair-skinned, but that doesn't mean that everybody fair-skinned has confidence. She did. So again, a staggering 1,500 proposals. That's how many men wanted to marry her. Some of the most powerful men in the world. So she did get married 4 times. Now, Josephine Baker was ahead of the sexual revolution in the 20s because it's no secret that she was bisexual. So not only did she have male lovers, she'd also have female lovers as well. She was doing this in the early 1900s. This behavior is unheard of. Okay? So this is what makes her an icon, because she owned everything about herself. And you have no Rihanna. You have no Beyonce. You have no twerking without Josephine Baker. Josephine Baker is with her banana dance, gyrating her hips. Josephine Baker has a quote that says, "I was never naked on stage. I just didn't have any clothes on." Thought that was profound. All right? So, before she got to France, she began performing in America. Now, I'm going to shrink this down because it is a lot of information about her life. So you go do the homework and the research. So she was basically on the Chitlin circuit in America. And I think her networking skills were so great that she found a way to get to France. There were blacks from America that were traveling to Europe. Now, remember that right there, because that was bold to leave home. And oftentimes, you're not accepted where you're from. You have to spread your wings. You have to go other places. They say a prophet is not accepted in his own country. That happens to so many people. You know what I'm saying? When you leave your environment, you oftentimes run into a love that you didn't have where you're from. These people love you, they accept you, they wanna build with you, and you're like, damn, well, why can't I do that with my family, or why can't I do that with people where I'm from? It just doesn't work like that, because a prophet is not accepted oftentimes in their own country. Josephine Baker wasn't accepted in America, but when she got to France, France was a little different. Yes, France did have its hands in colonialism in Africa, carving the hell out of Africa. But at the same time, it was a little different for Josephine Baker being black. She was an oddity. She was revered. Again, listen to this number. 1,500 people proposed to Josephine Baker. She was the first black international superstar. She was bigger than black America itself. France is where she thrived and flourished. Josephine Baker bought a castle in France. Josephine Baker, during the war, became a spy for the French government. She owned property in New York. I mean, the list goes on and on. The list goes on and on. And I want you to also do some research on Josephine, right? Because her life was ill, right? It's reported, listen to this number. Now, she was born in 1906. Listen to this number, because this amount of money is a lot of money right now. It's reported that Josephine, this black girl from St. Louis, was making $20,000 a month performing. $20,000. Now, let me go ahead and do some math real quick. Because I want to be right. So we can look at her income at that particular time. Now, this is phenomenal to me. So what we're gonna do is 20,000 times 12. So Josephine Baker was making $240,000 a year. That's almost $500,000. And I think that's the right number. Because at first, when I was doing some things, it was said that she made $20,000 a week. $20,000 a week. That puts her almost at $1 million a year. But I'm going to say it's $20,000 a month. She was born in 1906. Okay? Now, she got up out of where she was from. She couldn't do that where she was from. The politics of black society wouldn't allow her. Notice I said the politics of black society. I said nothing about white America. I'm talking about the politics of black society. She could never do her banana boat dance amongst black society. She could never be a sex symbol amongst black society at that time. Why? Because black society polices itself. It only allows you to go so far before you hit your head on the ceiling. Oftentimes when you're involved in black society, the people necessarily don't know what they're looking at. So you can be this amazing person, but no one around you know what they're looking at until you move out of that environment, and now you flourish, and now you're great. Josephine Baker was never as big in America as she was in France. Okay? She became more popular later on in her life because she attached herself to some civil rights things going on in America. In my notes, I have, she was performing for the military. She was performing for the military, or she was scheduled to perform for the military for $10,000. However, she didn't like that the blacks had to sit in the back. It was either the military or club. But when I go into these Josephine Baker facts, I'll get that corrected. She could never make that income in black society, black American society. But when she went to France, all of her genius, all of her skill set, all of her hidden potential opened up, and she was allowed to flourish. So when you're looking at Beyonce and you're looking at Rihanna, understand they don't exist without Josephine Baker. If you're a woman that right now feels like, you're able to own your sexuality and hoe his life, you're able to do whatever you want to do, that's fine. But you're not here without Josephine Baker. I would argue that it's not the 1960s that propelled feminism. Josephine Baker carved out and cemented what feminism was. She had a lot of suitors. She kept men in line. She made her own money. She was well traveled. She even participated in the war as a spy. This is the first feminist on an international level. So it is not the 60s that propelled women to want to get out in the marketplace and make money. Again, Josephine Baker was making $20,000 a month. She's born in 1906 from East St. Louis. Let's be clear about that. That's very important. She was among the richest people in the world, yo. So, oftentimes when we talk about societal issues, we tend to align ourselves with people that did not make something out of themselves. And we overlook the bold behavior of these legends. And a lot of times the answers that we're looking for is in the bold behavior of others. This woman is not really that talked about in our culture. But we talk about Harriet Tubman more, Sojourner Truth more, and I understand that. But there's different type of movements. Her movement is a financial revolution. To make that amount of money as a woman at that particular time is a sexual revolution, is a domestication revolution. The fact that she scoffed at this ideal of being this domesticated wife. If you married her, you had to marry her on her terms. And you did not come first. Her purpose did. This was a dreamer, y'all. Okay? Let's get into a little bit of Josephine Baker facts. These are just random facts that I found cool and she has a long life. So, it's hard to mention every single thing. But I'm going to mention a few, okay? And do your due diligence and follow up with her, man. Because she walked the planet, she's an ancestor energetically. You could tap into her mind frame. Because if this woman was seen the St. Louis riot, she was a young girl, she was from extreme poverty. If she can tap into something in herself to change her whole reality and do it at that particular time, what can you do? But maybe you need some help. So you can tap into her because her energy is still off the planet. So let me run through a few Josephine Baker facts, okay? Baker attained French citizenship from her third marriage to John Leon in 1937. While the marriage died out, they separated after just 3 years. She kept her new nationality. Now, when I said that a man was a stepping stone for Josephine Baker, I mean that. Now, let me tell you a person currently that follows the footsteps of Josephine Baker, Jennifer Lopez. Every time Jennifer Lopez dates a man, gets involved with a man, the man is in a place that she would like to go. She wanted to get more deep in hip-hop, she married Diddy or got with Diddy. She wanted to get more involved in acting, she got with Ben Affleck. She wanted to reestablish her Latino roots, she got with Mark Anthony. When she wanted to become relevant with the millennials and Generation Z, she started rolling with Drake. Now she's on the back end of her life and she's with Alex Rodriguez, who had baseball contracts. In fact, when he signed the contract that paid him, I believe $200 million, that was the first of its kind in sports. So she's on the back end now, and every guy she gets with is a stepping stone to where she's trying to go. I can't be mad at that because that was Jenny from the block. That was Jenny from the block. She's from the Bronx, yo. I can't be mad at that. She wasn't the best singer. She ain't the best actress. But when it comes to using the boldness of someone like Josephine Baker to fuel and fund her life, she's bar none. Just track J-Lo's life. Every arena she goes through a dude to do it. And he's a stepping stone. She is using the energy of Josephine Baker. All right? I'm just relaying the message. Josephine Baker became the first American woman ever to be awarded the Croix du Guerre, that's French, in 1946. She was also honored with the Medal of Resistance. Now, I told you she participated in the war as a spy. This woman's life was incredible. Okay? It feels like a tale of medieval chivalry. Listen to this, but it's true. 2 men dueled over Baker's honor in 1928. While staying in Budapest, Baker was awed and accosted by Andrew something and a Hungarian cavalry captain. Baker's manager, Count Papito Bartini, would not tolerate such ignoble behavior towards his Josephine. So he challenged the other man to a duel by sword. Now, when I tell you that this woman was making men go pure crazy, she was. Baker cheered on from the seat. Listen to it. Imagine this. Imagine this. So she's on the sideline. Now, this is in 1928, okay? So she instigating like hell. 2 dudes are battling to the death for her. And she is just stringing them both along. That's how she was. Because in her mind, she's never going back to St. Louis. She's never going to be in that situation again. So she's playing her hand. Baker cheered from her seat atop a tombstone as the suitors sparred in a local cemetery for 10 straight minutes. She did, however, put an end to the fight as soon as Albertini took a shoulder injury. In the name of her beloved lady, the man agreed to wrap things up. Man, listen. Beating the likes of Brangelina by decades. Listen to this. Josephine Baker adopted 12 foster kids of many ethnicities and nationalities. She called her family the Rainbow Tribe. So let's be clear. The LGBT community uses the rainbow. Josephine Baker was been rainbowed out. All right? Everybody got to pay homage to Josephine. She was rainbowed out before the rainbow was a thing. She had the Rainbow Tribe. All right? Grace Kelly and Josephine Baker were close buddies, together since 1951, the friendship began after Kelly defended Baker from racist servers at the famous Stork Club who had refused to serve the black entertainer. The white actress angrily walked out of the club in a show of solidarity for Baker and vowed to never patronize the Stork again. That's important because she was giving up her grace and favor for Josephine Baker. Grace Kelly was popping at the time. Popping. All right. After Baker and her rainbow tribe of kids fell on hard financial times, listen to this. Her close friend, a white woman, Grace Kelly, did her best to smooth things over with the creditors. While Baker did end up losing her chateau, she had a castle, a castle in France. Kelly refused to let her dear friend starve. Princess Grace of Monaco arranged for Baker to have a villa right in Kelly's adopted country. A princess of Monaco, all right, Monaco, bailed Josephine Baker out. This is a somebody, and she's here living this life because of bold behavior, yo. Boldness got her here. But listen, man, Baker had a pet cheetah named Shaquita, who actually had a role in the singer's act. When they weren't in the spotlight, Baker spoiled Shaquita by letting her ride in the car and sleep in her bed. Shaquita was truly living our dream lives. Listen, her cheetah was named Shaquita. So all that crap that we talk about, people having ghetto names and this Keisha and LaQuanda, Josephine Baker was popping in the early 1900s and her cheetah was named Shaquita. She had a cheetah, y'all, a cheetah. Many of Baker's eccentric pets had a place in her professional life. For one, her pet goat named Toto lived right beside her in the dressing room or in the nightclub. Toto lived right to dress. I did something wrong. So she had a goat too. Now, mind you, listen to this. While the rest of black women are in America training their daughters to get married, not just black women, American women, period. The baby boomers, people coming from war, while that is becoming the narrative, Josephine Baker is over here owning goats and cheetahs, adopting 12 kids, living in castles, got men dueling over her. Man, listen. The reason why she couldn't become popular in American culture, because she would be a threat. Because women from in the country would see that this woman is living like this and they would begin to have ideals. Josephine Baker was kept away from American women because this type of independence would totally offset this ideal of marriage in America. Women would have started wanting to marry 2 men if Josephine Baker had it her way. Listen, Albert, Baker's beloved pet pig, survived on food scraps from her nightclub's kitchen. It turned out to be a robust diet, so robust that Albert got so fat that the kitchen door had to be broken down in order to let the singer's prized pig roam freely. Yo, she had a pig too. The pig was eating. This is during depressions, yo. People are starving, and she got a pig so fat that she got to break down the kitchen door so the pig could get through. What? Baker always looked her best. Why should her pets be an exception? The entertainer liked to dress her pet pig Albert up in fine perfumes that would put our humble collections of Bath and Body Works products to shame. Man, listen, this is the bar. This woman right here was doing this in the 1900s. So if you're a woman, or anybody for that matter, and you don't think you can have it your way, you're bugging. Josephine Baker collected colorful nicknames through her life. Throughout her long career, she was called La Baker, Black Venus, Black Pearl, even Creole Goddess. It is said that Josephine Baker received more than 1,500 proposals from men over the course of her life. That makes it all more impressive that she got married only 4 times. Baker's bisexuality was an open secret. She entertained several female lovers, notably during her years in the United States, where segregation laws forced her into boarding houses instead of hotels that were built for her fame. Odes to her roommates came in the form of songs like blah, 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 blah. Okay, she wrote songs for her female lovers. Again, before Amber Rose, before the so-called slut walk, before the sexual revolution, Josephine Baker was already living that life. She was taking down men. She was taking down women. She was what you call Lilith, or the sacred whore. All the things that women are trying to be now, Josephine Baker was that in the 1920s. Almost 100 years, about 100 years ago. Okay, let me see. Okay, hold on. Let me tell y'all something. Okay, Baker had her first marriage at 13 years old. The groom's name was Willie Wells, but the marriage lasted for barely a year. The teenager rebounded from her divorce by joining the Jones family band and remarrying just 2 years later. At the age of 15, Josephine married her second husband, Willie Baker. Although they divorced just 4 years later, she would keep Willie's last name for the rest of her personal life. The reason why Josephine Baker kept getting divorced is because she wouldn't fall in line. She would not put the man over herself. She would not put this ideal of being submissive over herself. Now, you look at her. She looks, quote unquote, feminine, right? But her behaviors is very aggressive. 10 years can be tough on mothers and daughters, but the tension between Baker and her mother, Carrie, was exaggerated by 2 divorces before the age of 20 and Carrie's disapproval of Baker's entertainment career. Now remember, I said black culture oftentimes, even now, is a ceiling for many black creatives. And you can't reach your maximum until you separate yourself from the culture, because the culture polices you, right? You have to fit into this Negro Wi-Fi. So Josephine Baker at that time wasn't fitting into the Negro Wi-Fi. All right, so she had to get the hell out of here. Carrie hoped that her daughter would settle down and pay more attention to her second husband, Willie. See? Instead, Baker focused on her booming career. While the daughter would always return home from tours with gifts and money for her mom and little sister, she couldn't buy Carrie's approval. The harsh relationship was a deciding factor in Baker's move to Paris. Yo, look. Baker is having a conflict with her black mother. Her black mother had a failed career at entertainment, but her black mother also believed in getting up under the man. You see what it said. Carrie, Josephine's mother, thought she should pay attention to her second husband, Willie, more. And Josephine ain't having that. She's focused on her career. Now, to understand, to be bold, you're going to step on toes. To be bold, you're not going to be able to be boxed in. To be bold, you're going to go against conventional tradition because it's bold. You're bold. Just getting married, having 2 children and a dog, no disrespect to that, because it's a lot of people that want to live that life. But that's not bold, though. That is the common behavior that every American is going to do. Getting married, having children is not bold. It's not bold. Now, you can do those things, get married and have children. What does it look like? When you put your hand on something, how does it look? She was bold. At the height of the Harlem Renaissance, Baker was a regular Broadway performer. In fact, she was billed as the highest paid chorus girl in the vaudeville for her notorious act, where she would pretend not to know her moves as a member of the chorus line later. In the encore, she would perform the steps accurately and with super complexity. She was very outgoing. She was very funny. She was very sexual, though. That the banana boat dance is what used to make French audiences go crazy. In Paris, Baker rubbed elbows with the biggest names in modernist art, and she made an impression She made an impression. Writer Ernest Hemingway declared her to be the most sensational woman anyone ever saw, and Pablo Picasso jumped at the chance to pay her beauty. The French director Jean Cocteau also got to work promoting her to stardom, although her film success was limited to silent pictures in Europe. Listen, again, this girl's from St. Louis, Missouri, East St. Louis, that is. She's from poverty, but she's over in France rubbing shoulders with the most important people in that area. That's bold. That's bold. Ernest Hemingway, who is a legend in writing, said that she's the most amazing woman anyone ever saw. Now, they're talking about a black woman. All right? Born in 1906. So when you talk about your ancestors, please don't just talk about people that got lynched. Yes, they're to be respected, or civil rights people. You have to include people that went out and did the damn thing too. These people can't get lost in history. Their story has to be told. Josephine is probably most associated with her banana skirted dance. Beyond the fashion statement, the act revolutionized how dancers thought about movement itself. To quote one scholar, where European dancers showed the front, presenting the body as a unified line, Baker contrived to move different parts of her body to different rhythms. Most shocking to dance purists, she used her backside, shaking it, as one of her biographers said, as though it were an instrument. Twerking, all sexual dances in the industry, being half naked, sexuality, selling it, all comes from Josephine Baker. Let's be clear. Before feminism was what you know it as right now, Josephine Baker was in Europe tearing it down. All right? While others would show the front part, Josephine would show that booty. Josephine would twerk that butt. You understand? This is the woman that is responsible for Beyonce, man. She is responsible for Kim Kardashian. She's responsible for any woman that's popping right now through her sexuality. Baker's manager, Giuseppe Papito, passed himself off as a count, but was really a former state stonesman from Sicily. He was also in love with her. While he proposed marriage, Baker was still married to her second husband at the time and wouldn't leave him. The two did, however, embark on an affair, of course. Josephine Baker threw that vagina like a frisbee when it suited her. Okay? So look, under Albertino's management, Baker's career and public image truly took off in Europe. In her home country of America, however, people were less receptive and even threatened by her challenging act. Time magazine outright called her racist names and a wench, and others said her voice was too thin to fill real venues like the Winter Garden Theater. Is it any wonder that she became a legal French citizen? So let's check this out. In America, her behavior was challenging. Who was it challenging to? Other men. Why? Because if their wives, sisters, mothers mirrored the behavior of Josephine Baker, then the way men go about courting would have to be adjusted. At that particular time, everything was funneled through the church. Okay? Everything was designed for a guy to be the head of the household. That's just the way America was. But here you had this woman in France from America with this sexual act, with this liberated sexuality, with these crazy ideals of owning castles and adopting children of different nationalities way before Angelina Jolie did, calling them the Rainbow Tribe. Do you know how disruptive this woman would be if she was accepted in American households at that particular time? Hell, accepted now. Dangerous. Boldness, man. Boldness. Let me see. Check it out. In 1951, Homecoming to Harlem was the biggest event of the decade. Her show was sold out and got rave reviews, reaching its apex with the parade in her honor that was attended by 10,000 people. To no one's surprise, she won that year's NAACP Woman of the Year award. So even though she wasn't accepted at first in America, yo, check it out, man. You work it till it works. You work it till it works. So now she's popping both coasts. Check this out. The year the singer's return to the U.S. was cut short due to a mix of racism and anti-communism and bad hospitality. Baker turned against journalist Walter Winchell, an ally who failed to support Baker's criticism against the Stokes Club policy of limiting black customers. In return, Winchell accused Baker of being a communist sympathizer. This claim was serious enough that Baker's work visa was revoked and she was forced back to France. She was denied return to the U.S. for almost 10 years. So all the luck that she was having in France, it was not like that here. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes you got to get up out. For you to get up out and get something, you're going to have to turn your back on the things that you love the most and go other places. Remember, a prophet is not accepted in their own country. Josephine Baker is this international superstar popping all over Europe, but in America, she's a nigger. In America, the church is looking at her as a threat because of her sexuality. You got the Time magazine calling her racist names. But in France, she's a god. In France, she's getting proposed to by 1,500 people. Come on, man. Listen. In January 1966, Baker was the guest of honor at the 7th anniversary of the Cuban Revolution, performing at the theater at the trio musical Habana. Her show broke attendance records as benefits as she was a star. As she starred, she was a star invited by Fidel Castro himself. Now, while you may not know Josephine, and the culture might not talk a lot about Josephine, shit, people know Josephine. And when I went to the African American Museum, I don't remember Josephine in there. Emmett Till was there though. Let me see, man. It's so much. It's so much. Check this out. Baker famously refused to perform in racially segregated venues in the U.S., even turning down $10,000 from a Miami club who asked her to make an exception. The club eventually bent down to her demands. The entire city of Las Vegas began to integrate its audience at her request. Although the Ku Klux Klan sent Baker death threats for her integrity, Baker refused to be intimidated. This is feminism before feminism. Let's unpack this a little bit. First of all, she's getting a bag of $10,000 at that particular time. Secondly, she refused to perform for racially segregated clubs. Now, in the black community in America, there's this notion that you can't be pro-black if you're married to white people. Really. Josephine Baker was married to white men. She slept with white men, and many white men were her lovers. Yet, she refused to perform for racially segregated crowds. She wanted the black people to sit in the front as well. Now, I ask, can you still be pro-black and married to someone white? Because Josephine Baker surely was. She even put her money where her mouth was. She put her money where her mouth was. Who can turn down a $10,000 bag even to this day? So imagine what it was at that time. That $10,000 was like $100,000 now. She turned that down because black people were sitting in the back and she wanted them in the front. She made Vegas integrate. Now, some will call her a Negro bedwench in this country. But the Ku Klux Klan was sending this woman death threats, and she refused to be intimidated. I think that has to be looked at. I think we should stop labeling people things and look at their deeds. Because I won't care who the woman slept with. She refused to be bullied, and she refused to perform for racially segregated crowds. Who she slept with was her business. Look, man, it's so much. Look, check this out. Josephine Baker was at Martin Luther King's side and spoke at the 1963 March on Washington. In the wake of King's assassination, 5 years later, his widow asked Baker to inherit her late husband's position as leader of the civil rights movement. Mulling it over, Baker ultimately had to turn the position down. She didn't want to risk the welfare of her kids. In her words, they were too young to lose their mother. Josephine Baker would never put no one's interest above hers. So she was a selfish person so she could be a selfless person. Now, oftentimes, black women in America will put a movement above her children. She will put a movement above herself. I've seen that happen. In the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, it's pictures of so many women that went outside for the movement and that was getting criminal records, and they was getting jail time being snatched away from their children. Josephine Baker was not going down that path. So even though she was connected to the movement, if it required her to be in harm's way that would affect her 12 adopted children, hey, the movement would have to suffer. Josephine Baker is no joke. No joke. Okay? Let me see. In addition to Clara Smith, Baker had same-sex affairs with performers like Evelyn Shepard, Bessie Allison, Ada Smith, and Mildred Smallwood. According to her son and biographer, relationship between black female performers weren't super uncommon, as they would have to stick together against systematic abuse from bosses and racists. Okay, so she was about that action. Let me see. Baker's fourth and final marriage was to French composer Joe Bouillon. They divorced after 17 years of marriage in 1961, shortly after Baker had adopted the 11th and 12th of her children. Okay. Why did Baker adopt so many kids? She was out to prove children of different ethnicities and religions could still be brothers. The Rainbow Tribe, as she called them, lived on her estate of hotels, farms, and rides. Lived off her estate. Baker would charge admission to visitors who wanted to come in and watch her children play and sing. How gangsta is that? You know how people want to babysit your kid or come check your kid out? Baker would charge you if you wanted to come watch her kids sing and play. That's gangster. In the skeptical words of her son and biographer, Jean-Claude Baker, she wanted a doll. A softer take on their quirky upbringing comes from her Japanese son, Akio, who described Baker as a great artist and was our mother. Let me see. Amazing life. She died in 1975. Baker remains the only American woman to be buried with full French military honors for her work with the French resistance in World War II. Come on, man. Come on, man. Despite her many marriages, Baker had no biological children from any of her 4 husbands. And I think she did that on purpose. I think she didn't have any biological kids by any of her husbands because she didn't want to be held down. She understood that a dude popping you up with children oftentimes is a weapon to slow you down. Period. The men that wanted to be in Josephine Baker's life, they wanted to slow her down. She was making money. She was international. She did what she wanted, slept with who she wanted, and was apologetic about that. And you know how in this culture, in this society where a female might do something and they'll be like, you know what? You ain't going to get no man if you act like that. Or you ain't going to get no man if you do this or do that. Josephine Baker did not care. Again, if you watch the movie, one of her husbands or lovers came in while she was making love to someone else. And Josephine Baker stared him down like, look, either you're going to join or you're going to shut the damn door. I'm Josephine Baker. I do what I want to do. So she had a level of narcissism. She was very narcissistic, but that narcissism was the fuel that was going to keep her from going back to East St. Louis. I'm not even mad at her. She was carving her own lane. Listen, man, one more thing. As a French resistance spy in World War II, Baker weaponized the trappings of her superstar lifestyle. For one, the large piles of sheet music that accompanied her person on tours were actually secretly coded intel. She also pinned secret photographs of Axis military installments in her underwear. The starstruck immigration officers were always too dazzled by Baker's presence to really check her stuff. Josephine Baker was involved in World War II as well. What a life. What a life. What a life. I think that's incredible. I think there's so much meat and potatoes here that can be learned by not just women, by us all. A few things. Sometimes you got to get away from home. Sometimes you got to catch up with your own tribe of people that can support you and that match where you're trying to go in life. You get there through having big balls. You get there because you bet on yourself. You get there because you're not afraid to make people feel uncomfortable and you're not afraid to be disruptive. When you look at the life of Josephine Baker, she's not different than you. The thing is, she just had the nerve and the guts to do it. And no one else's self-interest, no movement, no one's personality was ever going to supersede her self-interest. When them St. Louis riots happened, listen, she decided right then and there, not for me. So she was selfish to be selfless. She laid who she wanted to lay with. She got money. She was a dreamer. She had her ups and downs like any human on the planet. But she never ever stopped being bold. Never stopped being bold. And she never stopped betting on herself. And that characteristic can be applied by anybody. To bet on yourself. And to put yourself above the culture. Now, this bold person's profile to me, how I would sum Josephine Baker up, would be simply this. Her character trait or her wiring is Josephine Baker was in what I call the me business. The business of me. Meaning that I'm focused on myself. I'm doing my thing. And if my cup runneth over, then everybody can drink. But not until then. Josephine Baker was in the me business. She was the me type. And she practiced necessary narcissism. And I think that's a trait other people living now should do. Because we've been taught to put the culture and personalities and the people ahead of our own lives, it becomes detrimental to our own selves. And then years pass and you notice that you never found your voice or you never found your own purpose and you never really found out what really works for you and what doesn't. That's a huge mistake. You know, not even to sound harsh, But the world looked like this when you got here, and it is going to look like this when you're going. Sometimes you got to put the world on hold so you can establish your confidence. Sometimes you have to put the people on hold so you can find out what works for you, and so you can find your place on this strange rock called Earth. Sometimes narcissism is the prayer you should be asking your God for. And then sometimes some people, you know, they just don't fit over there with the crowd. Josephine Baker was one of them. So I tried my best to bring out some things that I thought was dope about her life. Now it's up to you to carry on tradition, look at her life and see where you can relate, and figure out, you know, how to find your voice, how you can be bold. Fortune favors the bold. Eventually, all of us are going to be gone, and our bones are going to turn to dust. And the people that's living are the ones that's going to tell our story. So what are they going to say about you? The time is now. Being bold is being confident. Being bold is being unapologetic. And being bold is being disruptive. So do you have the heart and do you have the confidence in yourself to travel the path that Josephine Baker traveled? Because that's what's missing. And her story is here for you. Her life is here for you. Her energy is still on this planet. You can tap into her. And if you're lacking the courage, she can be your sword and your shield that you go out and do life and battle with. And as long as you can look yourself in the mirror, then being bold was definitely worth it. Okay? So I thank you guys for coming, and this was Fortune Favors the Bold, and this was about Josephine Baker. And I'm going to go through the lives of other people that I admire, and I'm not looking to agree with their life. I'm just looking for the things that I can add to mine. And I'm just going to go down the list, and I hope that you can walk this walk with me too. All right, so my name is Ken Billions. Tap into that Josephine. All right, till the next time. Peace.